Hi guys, in today's lesson we're going to look at the introduction to rivers, youthful stage of the river and erosion. Before I go on with the lesson, remember to check out our website examrevision.ie, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter and follow us on Instagram. Okay, so before we start off with rivers, we just want to look at some of the key terms. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is source, as you can see in the picture. And the source is where the river starts, okay, it's where it begins, and it's usually in an upland area. Then you've got the course of the river, and this is the route that the river usually takes. Usually starts upland and goes down its valley until it enters the sea or a lake. You've got a tributary, and this is a tributary is when a stream or river joins onto a larger river. You've got a mouth. The mouth is the end point of the river. It's where the river enters the sea or a lake. An estuary is where the river. It's at the river's mouth, and it's where it is tidal. You've got a river basin, and the river basin is the entire area which is drained by the river and its tributaries. And finally, you've got a watershed, and this is the high ground that actually separates two river basins. So you can see there in the picture. Let me just highlight this for you. You can see there you've got the drainage basins. Okay, you've got the drainage basins here, and you've got the watershed which run around here. Okay, so it's the watershed is separated by the two drainage basins. So there are three main ways in which our landscapes are changed because of rivers. The first one is erosion. So erosion changes our landscape because it wears it away. The second way is transportation. And transportation is the movement of material downstream. So it transports its load, its material down the stream. And the final way in which rivers change our landscape is because of deposition. And deposition is the dropping or dumping of its load or material. So, as the river flows from the source, where it starts, to the mouth, where the river enters the sea or a lake, it goes through different stages of the river's journey. There are three main stages of a river's journey, and they are the youthful stage, the mature stage, or the old stage. Sometimes these are called the upper, middle and lower course. But we'll use the youthful, mature and old stage for now. So the youthful stage, this is the beginning, and this is when the valley has a narrow floor and steep sides. This is where erosion mainly takes place, because the water is flowing fast and is cutting down into the valley and eroding all its material. The second stage, the mature stage, this is when the valley becomes from a V-shaped valley into a U-shape. The valley gets a much wider floor and the sides are much more gently sloping compared to the youthful stage. A lot of transportation happens here, but you do get erosion and some deposition. And finally, the last stage is the old stage, or sometimes called the lower course of the river, and this is when the valley becomes very flat, very wide, and has very gentle sloping sides. We mainly get deposition here, but we still do get erosion, transportation and deposition, but mainly deposition happens in the old stage. So the next part is looking at each stage. Okay, so in the youthful stage of rivers, it's where most of their erosion takes place, and this is because the water is travelling very quickly down the steep side of the slope, and all of its energy is actually used to erode and to wear away the landscape. Now the next bit I'm going to talk to you about is the four processes of erosion, and these four processes of erosion are so important. I cannot stress how important that these are. So the first one is hydraulic action. Okay. Hydraulic action. Okay, the second one is abrasion, third one is attrition. And the last one is solution. Now, these four processes of erosion must be learned by students, and you must understand the differences between each process. And then you must use these processes of erosion in your answer when you're talking about a landform or feature of river erosion. You must use these features, these processes in your answers when you're discussing your landform or features that are caused because of erosion in rivers. Students sometimes learn off these, they know what hydraulic action, abrasion, attrition and solution are, but then they don't use them when they're asked, when they're explaining how a landform or feature was created because of erosion on a river, such as a waterfall. So, what do these four processes of river erosion actually mean? Well, hydraulic action is the force of the water crashing against the banks and the bed of the river. And this causes, because of the sheer force of the water crashing against the banks of the river, this causes the particles in the rock to be eroded away. So the first one, that's hydraulic action. Abrasion, sometimes it's called corrosion as well. Just be mindful of that. Sometimes it is called corrosion. This is when the load erodes and wears away the river bed and the banks. Okay, and it's because it rubs against the bed and banks. Okay, so the rocks actually rub against the bed and the banks, and this is sometimes known as the sandpaper effect. The next one is attrition, and attrition is when the rocks actually crash against each other. So the rocks crash against each other, and as they crash against each other, they break each other up. And the last one is solution, and solution is when the river water dissolves rock particles because of the chemicals in the water. So it dissolves the rocks. Okay, so hydraulic action is sheer force of the water crashing against the bed and the banks of the river. Abrasion is when the rocks actually rub against the bed and the banks. Attrition is when the rocks crash against each other, and as they crash against each other, they break each other up. And solution is when the rocks are dissolved because of the chemicals in the water. So the rate of erosion depends on a few things. Okay, so the size of the river, the volume. This is the amount of water that a river contains, and the greater the volume, so greater the volume, equals the greater the load. And in times when there's a greater volume, such as a flood, the river erodes faster, and there's a greater load, so there's more of it to actually erode. The second rate thing that affects the rate of erosion is the speed of the river. The faster the river is flowing, the greater the erosion there is. So greater erosion fast flowing. Okay, so greater erosion when it's faster flowing. The third one is the hardness of the rock. So a river will erode softer rock much faster. So soft rock erodes faster. An example of a softer rock would be limestone. A harder rock such as granite or metamorphic rocks won't be eroded as fast. And the last one is the load. All material being carried by the river, the greater the load, the greater the erosion. So the greater the load, just rub that, greater load. Greater load. Greater erosion. Okay, so 4 things that affect the rates of river erosion: the size of the river, so the greater volume, the greater load, which will equal the more erosion. This might happen in times of flood. Speed of the river, the faster it's flowing, the more erosion is going to take place. The hardness of the rock. If the rock is really hard, there will be less erosion. If it's less resistant rock, such as softer rock, it erodes much faster. An example of this could be limestone. And the actual load itself. The greater the load, that will equal a much greater erosion. Now that we've learned the processes of erosion, and we know that erosion mainly takes place in the youthful stage of the river, because of all this erosion, it creates some features or landforms in the river as landscape. Okay, and these features are something that you need to know for your junior certificate examination. You'll be asked in the exam, can you explain one feature of river erosion of your choice, okay? And what you do is you can pick a V-shaped valley, you can pick a rapid, you can pick an interlocking spur, or you could pick waterfalls. Now my advice would be to pick a waterfall, okay? Waterfall is the best one to write about, in my opinion, because there's more to write about. The diagram is easy to draw, and it also links very closely to cliffs when you go to do sea erosion, okay? So I think waterfalls is definitely the best one to pick here. Okay, so like I said, I would pick a waterfall as my feature of erosion for rivers, but just to give you some information on V-shaped valleys, and so you actually understand what V-shaped valley are. Okay, so V-shaped valley get their name because they're shaped like a V, and this is because there's a lot of vertical erosion. The river cuts down into the riverbed, making it deeper, creates a narrow, deep valley, and because of mechanical weathering and mass movement, we get this V shape. Okay, and you can see it here in the picture here. It's got this V shape. So you get, because of weathering, because of mass movement, where it slips in because of gravity, you get this V. We get these lovely V-shaped valley. The next one is interlocking spur, and interlocking spurs are just the zigzag that is created along the river, okay? And it's when the river is flowing along its course and it meets an area of hard rock. And instead of eroding away the hard rock, what it does is it might erode the softer rock around it, and this creates this zigzag shape. Okay, so let's highlight this here. Okay, so as the river is flowing along here, instead of cutting through the rock, because this area here is hard, the river will decide to erode the less resistant rock, which is beside it. And it gets to this point, instead of going through the rock, it will erode the rock that's softer and less resistant, and so on. And what you get here is these zigzag kind of little hills, and these are called interlocking spurs. So, like I said, waterfall is the one that we want to learn, okay? There's a few reasons for this. It's easier to remember, I think. It's good diagram. It's an easy diagram to draw, and it links very closely to cliff erosion when you go onto seas. So if you learn waterfalls, it will be much similar to cliffs when you discuss cliffs, when you need to know a feature of a landform that is created because of sea erosion. So a question in your exam, in your junior cert, you will get will be, explain one feature of river erosion of your choice. And you will say waterfalls. You will need to know an example. So an example you can give is Powers Court. So Powers Court in Wicklow, County Wicklow. You can also give Torque Waterfall beside Killarney in County Kerry, or you could give the tallest waterfall in the world is Angel Falls in Venezuela, and the largest discharge to fall at one time from a waterfall is in Niagara Falls. So waterfalls form when rivers is flowing over an area of hard and soft rock. When the water reaches the softer rock, it erodes away the softer rock very quickly, which causes it to create a step. And this step will be a vertical drop, will get bigger and bigger as the softer rock is eroded away further. Because the water falls down onto the softer rock, it erodes deeper and deeper into the riverbed because of processes of erosion. Now this links back to the 4 processes of erosion that we learned about just a few minutes ago, and you need to talk about at least 2 of these. Okay, so you might say because of hydraulic action and attrition. Hydraulic action is the sheer force of the river water crashing down against the bed of the river, which causes it to erode away quickly. And attrition is because of the rocks crashing against each other, they cause each other to break up. These processes of erosion cause the vertical drop to get bigger and bigger, and eventually what will happen is we will create a plunge pool. And the river's load will create the plunge pool as it falls. You will get a lot of undercutting. Okay, this is when at the bottom of the plunge pool you start to get, I'll just highlight here. You start just here. You start to get undercutting here, because as the water is dropping down into the plunge pool, it's causing the plunge pool then to push the water into the softer rock here, which will cause undercutting, and this will be eroded away because of hydraulic action, abrasion and attrition. Over time, this undercutting will cut further and further into the softer rock, and it will cause an overhang to form. And eventually the overhang will get too heavy because of gravity, and it will collapse into the plunge pool. And over time the overhang will retreat upstream and it will form a gorge. Right, so now that I've explained waterfalls, if you'd just like to pause the video on this slide for a few minutes, I would like you to try and put the labels on the correct part of the waterfall. So if you haven't paused it, please pause it now, because I'm going to give the answers to the labels. Okay, I'm going to give the answers to the labels in 1, 2, 3. So the first one, less resistant rock, is going to be this go here. So the second one, the plunge pool, is going to go right here. The third one, the less resistant rock, is going to go here. Undercutting, that's going to go here. And the very last one, the overhang, is going to go here. So, hope you got them correct. And if not, you can make your changes now and correct them. Right, the next part of this is another little activity, and this question, how does a waterfall form? It's so important to know, because if you're going to talk about if you're going to learn a feature of a river erosion, waterfall is the one you want to learn. This gives you the formation of a waterfall. So I would like you, these are all mixed up in incorrect order. I would like you now to try put them in correct order. So just pause the video for a few minutes, try work it out, and then you can play it and see the correct answers. Okay, so if you haven't already paused the video, please do so now, because in 3 seconds I'm going to give the correct answers. Okay, so 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so the first answer is, the first part, the formation of a waterfall, is this one here, and that's the first one. Okay, so a river meets a band of softer, less resistant rock. The second one is this one here. So the underlying softer rock is eroded away more quickly. The third one is the processes of erosion, such as abrasion, cause undercutting. The fourth one is this one here. the more resistant rock is left unsupported and overhangs. The fifth one is eventually the more resistant rock collapses onto the river bed. The sixth one is this one here. The rock causes abrasion of the river bed. The seventh one is this one here. Hydraulic action also helps to create a deep plunge pool. And the eighth one is the process is repeated over and over and the waterfall retreats upstream. And the last one is this one here. A steep-sided river valley is created called a gorge. So I hope you got them correct. If you didn't, please make your amendments now before we move on. Okay, so I thought it'd be useful to show you what a diagram should look like if you're going to draw it. A simple diagram like this is absolutely fine for your juniors here. So you've got the river flowing. You need to show the more resistant, the harder rock. You need to show the softer rock, which is less resistant, so it gets eroded away. Undercutting. You show the plunge pool, and you might actually even show dotted lines here to show that this eventually will fall into the plunge pool and then retreat upstream, and you could even put a gorge upstream. Okay.